Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. We are into college football week 12, coming off a winning week 11. College football was in the green for me this weekend, which was desperately needed because week 10 was a nightmare. Winning week 11. NFL, not so much. Rough NFL weekend, but at least college football was in the green. So we're into week 12, got 3 MAC games. Tuesday night, let's go.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
First up, we got Central Michigan on the road at Toledo. Toledo laying 14.5 points at home, total sitting at 50.5. Let's get into this one, and we'll start with the Central Michigan offense against the Toledo defense. Now, the question we have about Central Michigan is who's playing quarterback, because Labus went down, then Bert Emanuel went down. Last week against Bowling Green in that disgusting weather game, we saw Tyler Jefferson get the start. That would be QB3. But midway through the game, well, not midway, it was actually in the fourth quarter, they made the switch over to this new kid, Glasser, a freshman, and in my opinion, he looked significantly better than Tyler Jefferson. Now, game was a little weird. There was bad weather. Jefferson, not much of a thrower. He's more of an athlete, and to be fair to him, he did make a huge play with his legs in the game. But as far as who's starting in this game, if you have any information, it's going to be Glasser or Jefferson. I don't know. I guess I would assume it's probably going to be Glasser because he did look a little bit better. But Central Michigan on the season, we know this is an offense that wants to run the ball. 80th in yards per play, 101st in success rate. Rushing numbers are actually all right. 25th in yards per carry, 71st in success rate per rush, 87th in effective rush. Passing numbers have been non-existent this season. Here are the numbers I was talking about from last week. Tyler Jefferson, when he got pulled out of the game, was 1 for 7 with 6 passing yards. That's through 3 quarters and some change. 1 of 7, 6 passing yards. Yes, the weather was terrible. He did have 5 carries for 65 yards on the ground. Then they brought Glasser in. First 2 drives didn't really do anything, but then last drive of the game, he finished the game 5 of 7, 57 yards, 4 carries, 10 yards. Drove right down the field to give me my backdoor cover on Central Michigan plus 14 in that game. So I appreciate that from Glasser, and he was making throws. The weather was ugly, and he was throwing the ball down the field. So in my opinion, it should be Glasser, but I'm not the coach of Central Michigan, so we'll have to see who's playing quarterback. Regardless, I don't expect much of a passing attack here from Central Michigan. Toledo can definitely pressure the passer. 57th in pressure rate, 45th in sack rate, 25th in pass rush grade. So whoever's playing quarterback for Central Michigan, if they do drop back to pass, probably not going to have a ton of time. Not the most talented throwers on the team right now, thanks to the injuries. So yeah, I don't expect much of a passing attack here from Central Michigan, but look at the Toledo run defense. Through the first 5 games, they're allowing under 88 rushing yards per game, 33.7% success rate per rush, just 2.8 yards per carry. But look at the numbers from the last 4 games now that they're starting to see some offenses that can run the ball. In their last 4 games, they're allowing 202 rushing yards per game, 4.7 yards per carry, success rate per rush up over 43%. So this Toledo defensive front hasn't been that great recently, and Central Michigan's been running the ball on some good defenses. In their last 4 games, Central Michigan's averaging 4.68 yards per carry. Success rate per rush, 40.8% isn't great, but over 184 rushing yards per game, that's against Ohio. Great MAC defense. Eastern Michigan, not so much, but Miami of Ohio, probably the best defense in the conference. Bowling Green's defense is just okay, but they've been running the ball. They've seen some solid defenses. They're still able to run the ball. So overall, on this side of the ball, I do think Central Michigan's able to move the chains here and there on the ground. Unfortunately, they're going to be one-dimensional as hell. I don't expect much of a passing attack here, so I can't put any faith in this offense, but I do think they're able to get some first downs here and there. They'll be able to run the ball a little bit. But what about the matchup on the other side? Will Central Michigan be able to make stops here on the road at Toledo? Toledo's passing attack has been pretty good this year. They're 55th in yards per pass attempt, 48th in success rate per dropback, 76th in effective pass. This is an offense that wants to throw the ball. They're 38th in passing frequency so far this year, and Central Michigan has really struggled against the pass. In their last 5 games, they're allowing 228.2 passing yards per game, 42.9% success rate per dropback, 8.44 yards per pass attempt. Now, these numbers aren't practical joke terrible, and there are a couple decent quarterbacks in there. San Diego State's actually been throwing the ball a little bit with O'Neal. Bowling Green has Bazelak, although that game was in bad weather, and Bazelak was still making throws. Miami of Ohio, they got a quarterback with Gabbert. So, I mean, they've seen a few quarterbacks, and the numbers aren't absolutely terrible. This isn't a good pass defense at all, but I don't know if I'd call it the worst in the country or anything like that. The reason Central Michigan's able to somewhat hold their own in the pass defense department is they actually have a decent pass rush. It's one of the better pass rushes in the conference. Toledo's offensive line has been struggling in pass protection. 123rd in pressure rate, 119th in pass blocking grade, 73rd in sack rate allowed. Tucker Gleason is having a good season. Just about 1,900 yards, 7.5 yards per attempt, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. These are decent numbers. I will say we're starting to see the passing production dip a bit, though. In their last 4 games, 273.8 passing yards per game. Okay, that's all right. But just 41.4% success rate per dropback, 6.88 yards per pass attempt. So the Toledo passing attack has not looked nearly as efficient in the last few games. I think Central Michigan's able to record a few sacks and stop a few drives. So I really want to take that plus 14.5. The problem is I just can't do it. I can't trust Central Michigan offensively to put up any points in this game. So even if the Central Michigan defense is able to grab a few sacks, I mean, the secondary isn't good. They're still going to make some plays. Gleason's still going to be able to make some throws here on the defense. So I can't take the plus 14.5. I wouldn't hate an under here at 50.5. We know Central Michigan's going to try to run the ball. They also run a pretty slow pace, choose some clock, move the chains a little bit, then punt. That could really help an under bet, but the weather's supposed to be all right, and taking an under in a Tuesday night MAC game when the weather's going to be all right, that's a dangerous game to play. These games can get kind of crazy. So I guess I'll say under 50.5, lean towards Toledo, but I'm not laying 14 at a hook. My picks for this game, Toledo minus 14.5, under 50.5. I probably won't be betting either of them next game. Next up, we got Ball State on the road in Buffalo. Buffalo laying 4.5 points at home, total sitting at 53.5. Let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the Cards offense against the Buffalo Bulls defense. On paper, it looks like these two units might be evenly matched, but if you've been following MAC football, you know that Ball State is playing much better offensively as of late. On the season, though, they're just 113th in yards per play, 78th in success rate. Early in the year, this offense looked terrible, but if you take a look at the last few games here, in the first 4 games, they were averaging 20.8 points per game. 4.42 yards per play is terrible, but if you look at their last 5 games, they're averaging close to 28 points per game, 46.6% success rate, 5.6 yards per play. So no question, this Ball State offense has looked much better. In fact, there's been times where Ball State looks pretty good offensively. Specifically, the passing attack with Samanza has taken a huge step forward. In those same last 5 games, they're averaging 247.2 passing yards per game, 47.6% success rate per dropback, 7.32 yards per pass attempt. And that includes a bad weather game against Miami of Ohio, which is an elite defense. They were still making throws in that game and ended up covering the number. Matched up against a Buffalo defense that continues to get cooked through the air, and honestly, it seems to be getting worse. In their last 5 games, they're allowing over 308 passing yards per game, 9.22 yards per attempt, success rate per dropback over 50%. So Buffalo's really struggled to stop the pass. Samanza seems to be heating up as the season progresses. Now, Samanza can get himself into some trouble in terms of dealing with pressure. Hasn't been the best when pressured, but Buffalo doesn't really have a pass rush. 97th in sack rate, 73rd in pressure rate, 92nd in pass rush grade. So I don't see any reason to doubt the Ball State offense here. Samanza should be able to make throws. Ball State should be able to put points on the board. But what about the matchup on the other side? Let's take a look at the Ball State defense, and this is where we start to find some value on the Buffalo side. Ball State, a pretty terrible defensive team so far this year. They're dead last in the country in terms of yards per play, 134th, 120th in success rate. They can't stop the run, can't stop the pass. And when you look at the right side of this graphic, you might say, Kyle, who cares? Buffalo's offense is terrible. And yeah, if you look at these numbers, it looks that way. 113th in yards per play, 121st in success rate. Rushing numbers are pretty bad, passing numbers even worse. But just like Ball State, Buffalo seems to be finding themselves offensively. Through their first 5 games, they were averaging just 18 points per game, 31% success rate, 4.24 yards per play, almost exactly the same as Ball State. This offense looked terrible in their first handful of games, but look at their last 4. They're averaging 32 points per game, over 6 yards per play, 43.2% success rate. This kid, CJ Agbana, I hope I'm saying that right, he's been killing it, man. Over 60% completions, 225.8 passing yards per game, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, an average pass rating of 136.9. That's in his last 4 games. So out of nowhere, Buffalo has this passing attack, and yes, you can point at the Ball State defense and say, Kyle, Ball State's been playing much better defensively, and you wouldn't be wrong in saying that. In their first 3 games, they were allowing 54 points per game. I mean, it was looking like this was going to be the worst defense in the country. In their last 5 games, it's been better. 30.8 points per game, 6.2 yards per play, 43% success rate. So it's definitely been better for the Ball State defense. And actually, if you look at just their last 2 games, it kind of looks like they're playing elite defense against the pass. In their last 2 games, just 6.15 yards per pass attempt, 229.5 passing yards allowed per game. But here's the thing. One of those games was against Northern Illinois. They haven't been able to throw the ball all year. They're having quarterback problems over there. That's a run-first offense all the way. And the other one was against Miami of Ohio in the pouring rain. The second half of that game, the weather was disgusting. Before the rain started coming down heavy, Miami went into half up 21-13, I think. The offense was moving the ball fine. So I'm not putting much stock in these numbers. I don't trust this Ball State defense at all. Agbana's killing it. I trust the Buffalo offense, which is why I went over here. 53.5, I took the over. I think we're looking at a classic MAC midweek shootout here. Should be high scoring. I lean towards Ball State with the points. I don't think this number should be any higher than 3. But I took the over 53.5 next game. Next up, we got Western Michigan on the road. Bowling Green laying 8 or 8.5, depending on your sportsbook. Total sitting at 58.5. Let's get into this matchup. And normally I start with the away team's offense, but I'm going to start right here because let's just get this out of the way. Bowling Green is going to be able to throw the ball in this game. Connor Bazelak should have plenty of opportunities to make throws. This is the best passing attack in the conference against a Western Michigan defense that's been getting shredded through the air. On the season, they're 121st in yards per pass attempt allowed, 132nd in success rate per dropback, 130th in effective pass. The weather's supposed to be fine. Bowling Green should have no problems throwing the ball in this game. We just saw Northern Illinois with Ethan Hampton at quarterback go on the road into Western Michigan, 13 of 16, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns, passer rating over 204. If you've been following MAC football this year, you know that the NIU offense has been struggling in terms of throwing the football. They've been very reliant on the run. They've had issues at quarterback. Ethan Hampton, I believe, even got benched at one point. So Northern Illinois hasn't been able to throw the ball all season. On the road in Western Michigan, dropped back to pass 16 times, still at 156 yards. So yeah, Connor Bazelak and Bowling Green, they're going to be able to throw the ball in this game. The question is this side of the ball. Western Michigan's rushing attack against the Bowling Green defensive front. Because we can talk all kinds of shit about the Western Michigan defense, and it would all be fair. They've been such a bad defensive team. But on the offensive side of the ball, Western Michigan, I mean, they're 38th in yards per play, 26th in success rate. Look at the rushing numbers. 25th in yards per carry, 56th in success rate per rush, 26th in effective rush. They also are capable of throwing the ball. They want to run it, but Hayden Wolf is more than a capable passer. And that plays directly into the weakness of this Bowling Green defense. 96th in the country in yards per carry allowed, 52nd in success rate per rush, 84th in effective rush. This Bowling Green defensive line has had problems staying on the line of scrimmage. 118th in line yards, 111th in stuff rate. And look at Western Michigan's numbers in their 5 conference games so far this year. Over 6.1 yards per carry, over 234 rushing yards per game, over 44% success rate per rush. So I don't think there's anything on paper here that shows Bowling Green is capable of stopping the Western Michigan rushing attack. I think they're going to be able to run the ball just fine in this game. And by the way, they've been coming around in terms of throwing the ball as well. Last week against Northern Illinois was a bad one. Just 179 yards, 6.4 yards per attempt. Look at the 4 games before that. 239 yards through the air per game, 8.73 yards per attempt, 54.3% success rate per dropback. Now, to be fair, those previous 4 games were pretty much against the worst 4 teams in the conference. I mean, Buffalo, Akron, I mean, you name it. Kent State's in there. So they played some bad competition, but it's important to take note that this Western Michigan offense is capable of throwing the ball as well. Hayden Wolf is a capable MAC quarterback. So as much as I like Connor Bazelak and the Bowling Green offense to go off here, I think Western Michigan's probably going to be able to score points right back, which is really scaring me off of laying the 8 points. I can't take the +8 with Western Michigan because I don't know if the defense makes a single stop in the game. So I can't take the +8, but I'm too scared to lay the 8. So my pick for the game is Bowling Green -8. But I think my favorite bet for the game would probably be Bowling Green team total over 33.5. Oh, looks like they're juiced. You can get a -125. So Bowling Green team total over 34.5. It's getting pricey, but that's probably my favorite bet for this game. Bowling Green team total over. I also lean towards Bowling Green minus the points. Just a little scared because this Western Michigan offense is kind of dangerous. So lean Bowling Green minus the points. Lean Bowling Green team total over. Live show 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go through these games. We'll go through the NBA slate, some college basketball. If you're able to make it, would love to see you in the comments. If you want to go see all the bets that I personally have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets. You'll see all mine as well as everyone on the staff here. Let's have ourselves a nice Tuesday. Please remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.